Hey everybody, welcome back to Life Without School. Today I wanted to chat about something that explains why unschooling can feel kind of hard sometimes, and explains why some people in your life seem to refuse to understand your choices to homeschool, and why, even though there's so many reasons unschooling, self-directed learning makes sense, it's so hard to penetrate through the narrative that school is best. Okay, so kind of three big jobs, but I think they're all kind of easily explained by this concept I'm going to share with you. So let me begin with how I discovered this thing. One of the things I have noticed in my coaching and work with unschooling families is that we seem to judge our lives quite harshly compared to other people. And that judgment isn't just internal, it doesn't just come from ourselves, but we also feel that judgment from society quite severely as well. So when, for example, our kids are having a really tricky time, we can think, oh, it's because we're unschooling. And family members might say, well, you have chosen quite a hard life, you know, for your kids. My family members don't sound like that. I don't know why I do that voice. Or you might be feeling pretty stressed, or there might be some conflict between friendship groups, and we can easily blame it on our life choice to unschool. And yeah, other people feel pretty open about that too, you know, almost as if we wouldn't experience these tricky things and this conflict if we were at school. Now obviously there are some things that can easily be blamed on homeschooling, like having a constantly messy house. Yeah, of course, if you have your kids around the house every minute of the day, there will probably be more mess, you know. Granted, there are definitely things like that, but this is more like a general sense. And I think it's because we have a sort of engorged measure of success when the lifestyle choice is different to that of the mainstream. So this applies not just to unschooling, but I think any decision that goes against kind of the mainstream channel of living, anything that goes against that is just judged a lot more harshly. Tim and I have been chatting about this, and we've been trying to name it because it's something we see so often. This idea that the hard bits of our life come down to this radical decision, as opposed to there being an element that everybody is struggling with different parts of their life at any one time, whether or not they've made a radical decision or not. So we were thinking about how to name this. I think I've come up with a sort of name, and maybe it's an inflated benchmark. So the benchmark for success is way above and beyond what other people's benchmarks of success are for their kind of mainstream life. We sort of hold ourselves up against a benchmark that is so exaggerated that we think if we're not in a complete state of harmony in our family relationships, if we're not kind of thriving all of the time, if there's friendships that aren't really going easily or smoothly, or relationships adult to adult that feel tense, or a general lack of happiness, we believe that we're failing, and we can think that unschooling or homeschooling is failing us, as opposed to all of those things being very normal human experiences. Yeah, so I'm kind of rolling with that idea, inflated benchmark. So let me know if that rings a bell. But that's not the main point of this video. The main point of this video is this. While I was trying to find out if anybody has named that phenomenon, in trying to discover if that has already been articulated and named, I'm still curious about that. If you've heard that described anywhere else, let me know. In seeking to delve into all of that, I did come across another really fascinating thing. That's the main point of this video. It is called the status quo bias. And it's this area of research that has uncovered that across the board, in so many studies from consumer behavior to all sorts of decisions that we're making every single, humans have a big bias towards the status quo. And we tend to consider that any change is going to lead to loss. Any change from the current state of affairs is going to lead to loss, whether that is accurate or not. So it's kind of a whole area of study that, if you're intrigued, I invite you to go and check this out. But some of the thinking about why we are so averse to changing the status quo. One is this thing called loss aversion, which has been shown leads to greater regret around action taken than inaction. So people are really motivated to do nothing or to simply maintain current decision making. So I'm really fascinated by this status quo bias, because it explains why things that make perfect sense can be so slow to be taken up. It explains why political change can be so gradual. And it also explains why some people, even though their heart says yes to unschooling, there's actually a real good psychological explanation for not leaping in. So if you're watching this and you've been binging my channel because you believe in a life without school, but you're finding it really hard to dive in, first of all, normal. I hope you're not beating yourself up about that. Hopefully getting a tiny glimpse around the status quo bias helps you realize there is a good reason for why you can't jump in. I feel like it also helps me have a little bit more grace for looking around me and feeling like we're onto such an incredible thing with unschooling, and just being blown away by all the people not doing it. I don't understand sometimes. But this little glimpse of the status quo bias helps me to see how in so many industries, so many spheres of life, we consistently err on the side of doing the same thing, even when it actually doesn't make sense. It also helps me to peer into my own life with some kind of truth-seeing spectacles to ask where I'm avoiding change because I'm sort of stuck in that inertia of just keeping with the current state of things, rather than doing the very best thing. And I wonder if that might be a little bit of an invitation for you as well to consider where the status quo bias is really stopping you from living the life that is yours in your heart. So yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts on both the inflated benchmark of success and also the status quo bias, and how all of life seems to incentivize people to just maintain the current state of affairs. I'd love to hear from you. Let me know in the comments your thoughts. There's also, we're coming into the last run of registrations for my 5-week course, Disco. It's a course all about unschooling, and it will really support you if you're feeling like you want to do this thing, but there's a big feeling that is scared of change, or yeah, wanting to maintain the status quo in your life. Yeah, check it out. The link is below. I would love to welcome you on board to Disco. It's live through July, super fun, and really, really supportive environment for wherever you are at in this journey. Take care.